it would be good, Dave, to touch base with, is Mr. Ham?
Jeff.
C-Tran?
Yeah.
Just to clarify the review of the governing body, because the way I read this, it says that at the meeting every 4 years, members of the county legislative authority and the elected representative of each city within the C-Tran boundaries shall review the composition of the C-Tran board.
Yeah, and I'm not
So
sure.
that sounds like 7 cities plus 3 county commissioners.
It may be that they convene a committee, and the constitution of that committee includes a representative from each city. But again, we'd be one voice out of 10.
Right.
But I don't know for sure exactly the composition of that review committee and whether they make a recommendation to the board of C-Tran, which has, how they have to follow that or not. I do know that if you're interested, whether now or as that time approaches, when it becomes a more present issue or when there's something could be done about it, there are minutes and documentation of the proceedings from this past summer, and Jeff's assistant has kindly offered to make those available to us. I'd just note that it's available if you'd like to see it.
Question. Since Councilmember Dietzman is voting and representing the city of Washougal, do we periodically get some sort of report from her as far as what's happening? What's
C-Tran doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah.
How are we being represented and that
I
sort of
haven't
thing?
received a report. I'm not sure if anyone else on the staff is aware of any report that comes out. That's a good question. I haven't seen anything so far in my time here.
No, actually, when I started on RTC, it was my intent to send out reports every few months, every quarter. So little on RTC really applies to East County. And honestly, I think C-Tran is probably the same, like most of what they discuss deals with other parts of Vancouver and Clark County. And frankly, both of those boards are very dense and meaty, and it'd be difficult to sift out the high points without getting into the details, which is the real important pieces, of course. And I at least on the MOU portion of it, the formal agreement, that would certainly be a good thing to do, and possibly consider making it a 2-year term, because really that they are very just knowledge intensive. There's a lot to learn on both of those boards. And for a 1-year term, you wouldn't even be getting your toes wet before you were out of there, in and out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it always used to be, when I served as a C-Tran board member from Washougal, it was a 2-year. The cities of Camas and Washougal agreed that they would be in 2-year rotations regardless of what C-Tran, and I gave you a copy of the letter that was sent to Molly. Did I give you a copy of that one?
No.
At the start of the year, or the end of the year, assuming that one went to Mayor Dennis as well, basically just saying, hey, make sure and let us know who you guys decide are gonna be representing these counties. So it used to be on a 2-year rotation, and I did go over and make some, probably only a couple of them, 2, 3, presentations to the Camas Council, but they were, I would be surprised if they were more than 10 minutes in length of just some things to do with service routes and asking any questions and that kind of stuff on there.
Dave, with the situation that happened this year, Molly was on the RTC board. If we enter into this agreement that Lloyd says should be straightforward, what happens if there's a situation like this? How do we keep and go for 2 years instead of 1? I mean, Molly got into a situation here that was an important position to be in. Should that be drafted into that MOU? That somehow it doesn't have to change just because it's written. It can be adjusted.
I think MOUs can be pretty flexible. You can mutually understand and amend it. If you want to prescribe a term that just provides some direction for future councils and future administrations about how it will work. And then if there's a chair that happens, we could try to craft some language in that would provide for mutual agreement to extend. And or we could just have it be for 2 years. And how long is the chair typically? Is that a tradition type thing, or is that bylaws with RTC?
As far as the duration of
tenure
that,
of
it's a one-year position.
1 year chair.
But normally there is a line of succession, so the vice chair moves to chair.
Mhm.
And that, there's a sort of a trilogy there, so this year the chair went to small cities, someone representing the small city group, which would be everything on the periphery of Vancouver. Next year it will be Jeannie Harris representing the city of Vancouver. And then the year following that, it will be one of the county commissioners. So it tends to cycle in that order. And I don't know whether C-Tran follows that same pattern or not.
So-
Chair of the board.
So having a 2-year tenure on the RTC
Where's
would
in
be
favor?
important in order to secure the chair,
Right.
so that you were vice and then chair. So we might want to look at 2 years, but then it means that there's a 2-year representation that for 2 years, we have it. And then, so it's one of our counselors, but then the next 2 years it's
Mhm.
not. And then, there's a feeling of a disconnect during that time.
I understand that most of the issues affect the western part of Clark County. There's 2 issues that affect us. One of them is the proposal to raise the sales tax 0.5%. And that's based on a desire to bring light rail into Vancouver from Portland. The first one, in the middle of a recession, is economic suicide. The second one is not justified by the facts, and the expenses of that exceed by a factor of 10 what it would cost to run bus service out of Portland. And bus service is more flexible. And bus service builds up its own capital replacement cost, whereas light rail does not. In Washington, D.C., I rode the inaugural train in 1976 on the 4th of July. And aside from the fact that they couldn't get the doors to open at the Metro main station there, it was a pretty good ride. The air conditioning didn't work right. The thing was overloaded. It was all new. They had switching problems. These things were all ironed out in a matter of 10 years. But now it's 30 some odd years later. And now they have to replace those trains. And not only the trains, the rails, the switches, everything that goes with it, all the capital costs, and they haven't set aside a damn dime to do it. And now they're turning to the feds and saying, help us out. Every light rail system in the country is doing that. This one here in Portland is no different. And that's what we're looking at. And that's why I think we need representation on that commission, because we don't need a sales tax here increase, and we sure as hell don't need light rail. And we better make that plain, or we're gonna suffer both. And the financial disadvantages of light rail are only part of it. The social consequences of having light rail coming into your area are pretty substantial. And Ron, you'll be interested in that, because it exports crime into your area.
Well,